All Souls Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Because we care for one another's safety, our congregation is gathering online during this long season of coronavirus pandemic. Nevertheless, through the gifts of technology, we continue to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love. Good morning, and welcome to our gathering. In the wheel of the year, this is the time of Imbolc, the period halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Imbolc is the season when winter is not over, but new life begins to stir. A dark and risky time when outcomes are uncertain. Birth among the flocks is a bloody, chancy, agonizing process, hard to watch. The lamb may come forth perfectly formed, but unmoving and silent, a sad, damp heap to melt back into the moor, a mother puzzled and forlorn. The ewe may die, exhausted from her labor, leaving an orphan to seek indifferent nourishment from a stranger. Both may perish together, their work of separation too hard to bear. The shepherd is there to hold witness for whatever work intelligent hands may do, but often enough they are impotent, up against the unyielding forces of nature, not subject to the guidance of care. There is little opportunity to linger over the work of death when the work of life is urgent all across the hillside. Human justice in the halls of power, too, is a chancy, agonizing process, hard to watch sometimes. That which is conceived in hatred and lies cannot come to birth in wholeness or accountability. When the body politic is infected with corruption, there is little reason to expect that it can bring forth health and a new hope. We have seen the miscarriage of justice on a national scale more than once. The abortive hope for truth and the rule of law equal for all. It feels like defeat, a death that should have been a new birth of freedom. We are shepherds in the early lambing time up against the tides of history. Sometimes all we can do is watch as the process fails. Make the sign of the ancient goddess Brigid over the blood and sodden wool. Let the season's final snowflakes cool our tears. Move on to the next birth pangs. Ease what we can. Pull with all our strength when pulling may help. Bear exhausted witness to the miracle when justice stands on shaking legs and roots for sustenance. The goddess of these days is severe. Mercy is not her name. The birth of freedom, of equality, of justice comes only with pain, persistence, and a mighty struggle, with tearing and loss, and the help of arbitrary good fortune. Not all the possibilities that quicken in the womb will come safe to birth. It's the muddy time of year. Be in the frozen muck of disappointment and despair for now. It is the inward season of Brigid, goddess of contained fire, the hearth, the forge, the candle, domestic, not wild, the enclosed womb, private, not public. The goddess of COVID pandemic, in fact, in whose honor we do not gather but separate, whose worship turns us toward inner resources, whose power abides in our isolation. Brigid, who presided over the late winter lambing long before the tales of Jesus ever reached the British Isles, became Saint Bridget, and her ancient feast named Candlemass for the purposes of the church. You can see the logic of it. Produce your candles at a season when the melted wax will harden easily, when the extra heat of their making is welcome. A tithe of the slender tapers and the solid pillars would go to the church to make illumination there and to be blessed on behalf of all of their kind. The fire we carry in our hands, the candlelight that makes home safe and visible. The hearth fire and the forge fire are also Brigid's domain. Workmen brought out their tools to be blessed at Candlemass as they prepared for a new season of labor at their craft, whatever it might be. The fires that we do not fear, that warm our bodies and cheer our hearts, that cook our food and weld the metal of our needs. This is her gift, goddess and saint, to bring us through the last of the winter storms until the sweet breezes of spring shall come and the lost lambs of February be forgotten amidst the soft, dainty creatures, riot of furred bunnies and feathered chicks, and curly wool white in the new sun. The nursing ewes placid amid the resurgent grass. Days that are coming, surely, but are not yet. If there is an arc of justice, a promise that the universe bends toward wholeness, that the virus is not, in the end, more clever than we are, its curve runs through these days of Imbolc, the holy power that is in the milk, in the womb. Welcome to the celebration of this difficult season, the Lent of the year, when resistance holds the key and rejoicing comes only by deliberate intention. Things are in flux and at risk, melting but still frozen, getting ready to take the chance of birth. Abundance, like justice, lies ahead on the far horizon. but now is a time of constraint and preparation. Let us open our hearts to Brigid, ancient goddess of Imbolc, that we may bless the inner light of our lives and honor these days of endurance and resistance before the coming of spring. We will kindle our chalice and speak the words of our covenant a little later in this service. For now, we offer this invocation to the spirit of Imbolc.
This is a prayer for Imbolc.
This is a prayer for when roads flood.
This is a prayer for the lingering dark.
This is a prayer for resistance.
We spark the candles to beg the light to return, but we never really know if it will work. The road may flood. This could be the year it all falls apart. The February rains may be too much.
We fire up the forge to bend hard metal to our will, but we never really know if it will work. The road may flood. This could be the year that it all falls apart. The February rains may be too much.
We write the poem to express what's inside, but we never really know if it will work. The road may flood. This could be the year that it all falls apart. The February rains could be too much. Imbolc is a chance we take, a chance we take in the dark. This is a prayer for when things fall apart. This is a prayer for when roads flood. This is a prayer for Imbolc. This is a prayer for the lingering dark. And this is a prayer for resistance. Brigid, the goddess of poetry, invented keening for those times when no words were enough. Shall we now keen our sorrows?
Brigid, the goddess of smithcraft, invented forges for those times when small flames were not enough. What shall we now forge?
Brigid, the goddess of healing, invented beer for those times when water couldn't cure the deep thirst. What shall we now toast?
Brigid stands in the February rain, a warm flame in her hand, watching the roads flood. She will neither look away from the flood nor extinguish the flame. Imbolc is a chance we take, a chance we take in the dark. This is a prayer for when things fall apart. This is a prayer for when roads flood. This is a prayer for Imbolc. This is a prayer for the lingering dark. And this is a prayer for resistance.
The shepherd goes out despite the rain. The shepherd is the resistance. Without the shepherd, the ewe will miscarry, die in the mud, bleed to death. Deliver the lambkin still.
The shepherd sees the rain, throws on her cloak, and cuts through the meadow. But she never really knows for sure if it will work.
The road may flood. This could be the year that it all falls apart. The February rains may be too much, but she still wades toward the ewe. Brigid sees and holds her flame.
Imbolc is a chance we take, a chance we take in the dark. This is a prayer for when things fall apart. This is a prayer for when roads flood. This is a prayer for Imbolc. This is a prayer for the lingering dark. And this is a prayer for resistance.
It's Imbolc. It's pouring rain in the lingering dark. The roads have washed away. The ewes are miscarrying. The forge fires going out.
The poets are throwing down their pens. The yeast has failed in the hops. Who are you in these times? What's Imbolc to you, or you to her?
Resistance thrives in the lingering dark, and flash floods bring forth new paths. Put on your cloak and wade through the mud. The goddess Bridget is holding her flame. The goddess watches and weighs.
Imbolc is a chance we take, a chance we take in the dark. This is a prayer for when things fall apart. This is a prayer for when roads flood. This is a prayer for Imbolc. This is a prayer for the lingering dark. And this is a prayer for resistance.
A Difficult Birth by Gillian Clark. An old ewe that somehow till this year had given the ram the slip. We thought her barren. Good Friday and the Irish peace deal close, and tonight she's serious, restless, and hoofing the straw. We put off the quiet supper and bottle of wine we'd planned to celebrate if the news is good. Her waters broke an hour ago, and she's sipped her own lost salty ocean from the ground. While they slog it out in Belfast, 8 decades since Easter 1916, exhausted, tamed by pain, she licks my fingers with a burning tongue, lies down again, 2 hooves and a muzzle. But the lamb won't come. You phone for help and step into the lane to watch for car lights. This is when the whitecoats come to the women, well-meaning, knowing best, with their needles and forceps. So I ease my fingers in, take the slippery head in my right hand, 2 hooves in my left. We strain together, harder than we dared. I feel it creak in the limbs and pull till he comes in a syrupy flood. She drinks him, famished, and you find us peaceful at a cradling that might have been a death. Then the second lamb slips through her opened door, the stone rolled away.
Many pre-Christian indigenous divinities are personifications of natural powers and processes, especially those that are least understood and least subject to human control. The heathen goddess Brigid, like many of her colleagues, had several areas of responsibility, as we shall see this morning. But she was first and foremost the spirit of late winter, the time when sheep, who are impregnated in the fall, begin to give birth. The word for her feast day, Imbolc, means something like in the belly or womb or in the milk. When you see it spelled out, it looks like Imbolc, but as with the related words lamb and womb, the B is essentially silent. For a sheep herding community, this is of course a crucial and suspenseful time of year. The weather can be dicey, as we have seen these past weeks. If the young lambs are not born safely or do not nurse successfully, there may be little profit in the entire year. If the mother sheep, the ewe, dies in giving birth, it can be a disastrous financial loss. There is much at stake, and sheep are not usually kept in closed barns, but give birth outdoors regardless of the weather. It is a situation requiring all the magical and divine help that can be had, as well as the acceptance that outcomes may not always be what we would wish. But there is also something miraculous about the way that a newborn lamb struggles upright and seeks its mother's warmth and milk. Like other prey creatures, sheep and their newborn young need to move away from the birthplace as quickly as possible because the leavings of the delivery process will soon attract predators. If the young do not stand and follow right away, they may end up as a meal for another creature that their mother is too exhausted to ward off. But if they can manage that, and most do, the ewe is prepared with life-giving sustenance, like all mammalian mothers, in the form of milk. That milk seemed like a magical thing to the worshippers of Brigid, something divinely provided for both lambs and humans. Scholars have noted that particularly the Irish diet depended heavily on dairy products of both sheep's milk and cow's milk to supplement the vitamin D that was lacking in a commonly overcast climate. Especially in late winter, when stores from the previous harvest might be running low, the resumption of milk production was a welcome event. As the Christian tradition spreads through the British Isles, the goddess of Imbolc will come to be known as the Catholic Saint Bridget, one of whose reputed miracles was to cure a dying girl by transforming water that was brought to her into healing milk. The processing of milk into cream, butter, and cheese was done primarily by women and was considered a kind of feminine magic. Milk remained a symbol of blessing and purity into Christian times, as well as a token of justice, for it was thought that if milk were abundant, the land had a good and honest king, whereas if the king and his ministers were corrupt, the milk of sheep and cattle would dry up. Another facet of Brigid's power was that she was the goddess of contained fires, such as the candle the forge, and the hearth. The 19th century Unitarian poet John Greenleaf Whittier describes the charm of the hearth fire in winter in these lines from his long poem, Snowbound. As night drew on, and from the crest of wooded knolls that ridged the west, the sun, a snow-blown traveler, sank from sight beneath the smothering bank. We piled with care our nightly stack of wood against the chimney back and tinder brush. Then, hovering near, we watched the first red blaze appear, heard the sharp crackle, caught the gleam on whitewashed wall and sagging beam until the old, rude furnished room burst flower-like into rosy bloom. Shut in from all the world without, we sat the clean-winged hearth about, content to let the north wind roar in baffled rage at pane and door, while the red logs before us beat the frost line back with tropic heat. And ever louder when a blast shook beam and rafter as it passed, the merrier up its roaring draught, the great throat of the chimney laughed. The house dog, on his paws outspread, laid to the fire his drowsy head, and for the winter fireside meat between the andiron straddling feet, the mug of cider simmered slow, the apples sputtered in a row, and close at hand the basket stood with nuts from brown October's wood. What matter how the night behaved? What matter how the north wind raved? Blow high, blow low, not all its snow could quench our hearth fire's ruddy glow. At last the great logs, crumbling low, sent out a dull and duller glow. That sign the pleasant circle broke. My uncle ceased his pipe to smoke, knocked from its bowl the refuse gray, and laid it tenderly away, and roused himself to safely cover the dull red brands with ashes over. And while with care our mother laid the work away, her steps she stayed one moment, seeking to express her grateful sense of happiness for food and shelter, warmth and health, and love's contentment more than wealth, with simple wishes, not the weak, vain prayers which no fulfillment seek, but such as warm the generous heart, e'er prompt to do with heaven its part, that none might lack that bitter night for bread and clothing, warmth and light. There is something both fascinating and eerie about a living flame. All eyes are drawn to it, and our attention can rest there for a long time without seeking for another object. Fire is always potentially dangerous, but in controlled form, it has important uses in human culture. It creates a safely warm environment. It cooks food and offers modest illumination. Its attraction brings people together into relaxation and community. There are many fire-related deities. Brigid is associated specifically with controlled fires, those of the hearth and home, those of the forge and metalsmithing, and the making of candles. It is not surprising that a goddess of fertility, birth, and milk would also be connected to the domestic fires of the hearth and candles, so necessary to maintaining a household and the work of women. Brigid also became known as the patron saint of poets and of music, the divine inspiration that comes from gazing deeply into the flames. Long winter evenings are the time for singing and reciting sagas of the heroes of olden times and the stories of the gods. Brigid is the goddess of the inner fire, and thus also the goddess of healing and health, as well as spiritual inspiration. Her celebration is not a great public gathering festival with assembled crowds, but the comfortable rituals of the snowbound family. Her blessings are warmth and contentment, at least when you're not out on the hills with the laboring sheep. The recognition that more suitable outdoor seasons will come, but for now, the holy place is the safety of hearth and home. I think we need Brigid in these long COVID-isolated days. In our Yankee ingenuity, stimulation-starved spirits, we need the reminder to seek what is sacred, closer even than our own backyards, but right at our own firesides, with a prayer of gratitude, like the poet's mother, for warmth and shelter, food and health, and love's contentment more than wealth, and simple wishes that none might lack these bitter nights for food and clothing, warmth and light. Brigid, make it so.
Imbolc. It is the time of milk and birth, herbs, and the weird magic of wells. Naturally, the goddess of hearth fire and candles. But there is a working and a blessing for men as well. The forge, too, is a contained fire, and you will find Brigid there, in the spell of heat and metal, from which a good tool is born. where the iron is wrought and tempered into something trusted, a hammer, a plowshare, an axe head, a thing that moves as the worker moves in harmony where the habits of the earth meet the human will. The furrow turned to receive the seed, the timber dressed for building the marriage of upright and crossbeam that shapes the shelter. The long, cold winter twilight is for sharpening the saw blade, truing the cutting edge, resetting the handle to the sledge and the harrow. The tools, like all created things, long for our blessing, warm in the presence of our respect and care. They will labor with father and son and grandchild faithfully, in earnest. A little oil, the touch of a whetstone, broken leather mended, is a reasonable sacrifice of reverence and gratitude. While the snow lies deep and the bear's dreaming grows restless, and the sap begins to stir, and the milk tightens in the udder, Bridget, dazzle us with the quickening of new life, the highest miracle. And hear our prayer for these, our humble tools, that serve as we serve, unbegrudgingly, the common purposes of the year.
It is easy to think that those who farm the land must be idle when the snow falls and winter holds everything frozen, but it is not so. In the urgent haste of planting and the heat of cultivation and the long labor of harvest, there is little leisure for maintaining the implements necessary for those tasks. Agriculture cannot be accomplished except with the use of tools, and those tools need care, whether they be nostalgic tractors or state-of-the-art combines or simple ancient plowshares. Sharpening the saw has come to be a metaphor evoking all forms of preparation and practice, but not long since it was a very literal requirement, and the provident worker spent the hours of winter caring for the equipment that would need to be ready when the time of sowing arrived: oiling, sharpening, repairing, honing. One of the traditions that was transferred from Imbolc to the church's Candlemass was the blessing of tools. Brigid, as the goddess of contained fire, was also the patron of metalsmiths and the forge fire. Hotter than the family hearth, the forge enabled copper and iron to be fashioned into the needs of human culture. Early worshippers called down the goddess's blessing on her feast day, asking for an auspicious year for their tools, that they might not slip or turn and do injury or break, but work well throughout the seasons ahead. Later generations brought them to church along with the new candles of Candlemass and carried them in procession to the altar for a different God's blessing, but the same prayer, that they might plow a true furrow, strike the nail squarely, cut wood and not fingers, turn with ease and do no harm. It is wise to respect the tools of our trades and honor our partnership with the objects that serve us. What of the humble scissors, the pencil, the cooking pot, the screwdriver, the broom, that work with you to create order and benefit in your domestic world? Brigid remembers, even plastic comes forth from the heat of a forge. Bring your tools into the realm of gratitude and reverence, and reflect blessing on them, so that in the urgent moment of need, they may move with you in harmony of purpose, and in your hand labor for the good of the world.
I'll be your candle on the water. My love for you will always burn. I know you're lost and drifting, but the clouds are lifting. Don't give up, you have somewhere to turn. I'll be your candle on the water, till every wave is warm and bright. My soul is there beside you. Let this candle guide you. Soon you'll see a golden stream of light. A cold and friendless tide has found you. Don't let the stormy darkness pull you down. I'll paint a ray of hope around you, circling in the air, lighted by a prayer. I'll be your candle on the water. This flame inside of me will grow. Keep holding on, you'll make it. Here's my hand, so take it. Look for me, reaching out to shore, as sure as rivers flow. I'll never let you go. I'll never let you go. I'll never let you
For many ages of human existence, before the advent of electric power, the only light other than the natural daylight of the sun was fire. The wild outdoor forest fires and prairie fires, the signal fires and campfires and bonfires of human making. Inside shelter, though, if you wanted illumination, it was brigade's flame, contained and controlled, hearth fires, lanterns, and candles. When Christianity came to the Celtic pagan cultures, it subsumed the goddess of Imbolc into Saint Bridget and the holiday of Candlemass. Ostensibly, this festival celebrated the presentation of the baby Jesus, according to Jewish tradition, in the temple at Jerusalem, and the ritual purification of his mother after giving birth. Just as they could not eliminate the connection with birthing, the connection of domestic fire also endured beneath the surface, and Candlemas became the feast when families brought a portion of their candle production for the year to church. These were carried in a candlelight procession and formally blessed, after which they were contributed so that the church also might be illuminated as necessary. It remained, as it had always been, a ritual of resistance to despair in the last lingering days of winter, an act of faith that although the coming of spring might feel impossibly distant, it was in fact just around the corner, and the milk of new life already beginning to flow. These days, we cherish candles for their beauty. When we light that small flame, it throws a living glamour over our little space and over us who watch, a magic that LED bulbs will never equal. Candles remind us that we can give light more and more to other flames and our own be undiminished. In this spirit, I invite you to bring to hand the All Souls candle that you should have recently received, along with some matches. We begin with the familiar words of our covenant promise in community. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Together, I now invite us to give flame to these new candles with the intention of blessing. Blessed be the sacred fire that lives deep within each of us. May we cherish its light. Blessed be all that is contained and enclosed. Blessed be this time of isolation so that we may share health. Blessed be the future that grows protected within the womb. Blessed be the milk that is prepared to nurture new life. Brigid, ancient spirit of the Imbolc season, bless our hearth fires and our homes with warmth and love, and let there be mercy for those who are without. Bless the risk of birth by which life continues. Let there be pity when it goes awry, and solace for its losses. Bless the tools of our labor and the transforming heat of the forge. May justice be the anvil upon which our days are wrought. Bless these candles that connect us to one another in community. May they remind us that all flame is your flame, that all flame is one, that even when we are separated, we are not alone. And from this flame of personal light and covenant community, I kindle now the chalice of our faith heritage that takes its shape from the prophetic words and wisdom of many traditions, from the human response to mystery and wonder, to reason and compassion, to the infinite abundance of divine creativity and love, and to the unending cycles of renewal and change in nature. May it stand as a beacon to all who seek to know the fullness of life.
Hi, my name is Carrie Bader. This is Josie.
Hi.
And I have been a member of All Souls for most of my life. I grew up in this church and have in turn been raising Josie here. I chose to bring Josie to this church because I had my own firsthand experience with what it means to be raised with UUA values. And I wanted my daughter, Josie, to have the same open and welcoming religious education that I experienced. I'm also very involved in the RE program and have taught the teen Sunday school class for many years now. Since the COVID pandemic began and the church took services online, I've been meeting with the teens in our online hangouts. While it's challenging to find connection over the internet, these regular meetups with the teens have proven to be just as rewarding as the in-person classes. The teens still introduce me to lots of lingo that I didn't even know I didn't know. They still want to share their same lives and connect with each other, and they still have a lot of the same joys and concerns that they did before the pandemic. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to continue meeting with them and sharing with them. And I want to thank Judith and Melanie for working so hard each week to keep Ari going from home. Along with Ari, the music at All Souls has likewise remained a wonderful source of connection throughout this time. Josie joins children's choir every Sunday with Sarah over Zoom, and she loves that time with Sarah and her All Souls friends. And Anthony's use of technology to continue to bring us the wonderful music we love has offered such beauty and comfort, even in our homes. I'm grateful, and I know you are too, for how hard Anthony, Sarah, and all the musicians and choir folks, senior and junior, work to bring us this wonderful, wonderful music every week. Please thank all the people who work to bring us music and religious education each week. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Gauem molte bride in jan ile heran in jan legachtiri mola mishkoleri Lachran gal alleinach solche farne tiru Giaun roiach deran Giaun man mina Tigan gaire diandu Giada leine geiru Ach allole bride Garduin arach deran Mola mishkoleri
Let's say together the words of dedication for our offering. We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society. The interdependent web of all existence that we affirm and celebrate as Unitarian Universalists is a network of consequences. If we are open to its lessons, it teaches us consistently that the gamble of greed, self-seeking, and isolation may pay off in the short run, but cannot be sustained over the course of time. It reminds us that it is not okay to bet profit margins against people's lives. It's not that we don't know how to deliver power reliably when a city freezes over. It's just less expensive to build a power grid if you don't pay for those protections up front. For the past week, the heart of winter has brooded over large parts of this nation, including our own state and city. Whatever the groundhog may have seen a fortnight ago, the season had more to throw at us, here and elsewhere. I am grateful to those among our local activists and our city administration who took winter's power seriously and took pity on our most vulnerable neighbors to open the new public warming center at Bartle Hall. There is no doubt in my mind that lives have been saved by both volunteer efforts and by local tax dollars. I am thankful for whatever part our own efforts as community dedicated to compassion and change may have played in bringing that action about. There is more work to be done, assuredly. We have not solved any problem. We have only stopped in the crudest possible ways the very worst possible outcomes. Nobody died is about the lowest bar there is. We can and should and must do better. At the same time, my heart goes out to friends and colleagues and fellow UUs in Texas and all those suffering from the devastation caused there by this weather system. Without electricity, without heat, without water, the trappings of civilization fall away quickly. Suffering and death come real and close. Like the shepherds of Imbolc, there may be little we can physically do. The last thing that the burdened cities of Texas need is the arrival of more potentially contagious people to demand power, water, and care. If you are moved to take action, our own UU Service Committee is working in partnership with several existing local organizations to offer support for the most vulnerable and hardest hit by this crisis. You can learn more at the UUSC website, and a check to them directed to Aid for Texas would be very welcome. The other, and maybe harder thing that we can do is to watch and learn. When our own legislators and policymakers invite us to cut corners on public service and emergency preparedness, to bet momentary profit against eventual disaster, we can recall the people of Texas who died of cold and snow that would not have turned a hair in Minneapolis because we know how to do this. We can remember 21st century Americans who burned their furniture to get warm because their state government did not want experts telling them how to protect their people. We can remember that the interdependent web is a network of consequences that are not optional, that our choice between greed and responsibility today is the difference between harm and suffering or well-being for our neighbors and ourselves in days to come. These storms will pass. The wheel of the year is turning, and spring is only a few tedious weeks away now. The days will lengthen, the frozen slush will soften and go. It will be good to see the sky clear and blue, the grass greening and the trees budding, the roads dry, the creatures awake with their young thriving. But don't let Imbolc pass without a quiet midwinter blessing. Honor the quickening of new life and the milk that sustains it. Honor the keeping of the hearth fire, the brewing of beer, the care of tools. Honor the candle, the light that we carry within ourselves, around our homes, and at our churches. May Brigid bless us and keep us during this, her season. May her light remind us that even though we are separated, we are not alone. The cold is not done with us. There is danger yet in the storm. Abide with Bridget a little longer, friends, by your own fireside, alone and safe, in the womb, before the adventure of birth begins, before the outcome is assured. It is a troublous time we are in, surely, and these are not days of idleness. Attend to your tools, sharpen the edge of discernment, and make strong the bonds of connection. Bless the candle of your heart, and carry its flame warm through the mud and the gray skies. Blessed be the quickening of the new life that is to come. Blessed be the milk that is given for sustenance. Blessed be the hearth that holds us. Blessed be the implements of our labors. Blessed be even the groundhogs and all wakening creatures. Blessed be the spirit of Imbolc. Blessed be Bridget of the candles. Blessed be. We extinguish these flames, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the powers of commitment. For all of these we carry in our minds and hearts until the time shall come when we will be together again. Thank you for being with us for this seasonal celebration. We invite you now to join us for informal fellowship and conversation at our Community Connection Zoom room. You can find that link here in the chat or at our All Souls website homepage. Don't forget to sign up to sample and vote in the chili cook-off next week. Be sure to fill out the short advocacy task force survey on our website and email Angie Jennings to let her know that you did it. Then you will be entered in our drawing for a free chili cook-off ticket on Thursday. We hope you will plan to be here next week when we will consider the whole idea of covenant. Why is it so central to our understanding of church community? And how does it give shape and meaning to the many dimensions of our lives? Until then, please, everyone, get vaccinated when you can, take care, stay safe, and be well this week.